All ready to go? Okay. Well, this is exciting. Brad and you're working on more of your options. I think we have about 6 now. So you get the open contract as the A, and then they marry you. Oh, you're with the contract? Going in, so we're going in. So they have different types of we want to get a big Hillary Force base in Utah. With the contractor out of Texas.
I just
Okay, and so the
don't want to
contractor's
sell
going in
them.
as the head.
When Ted is no longer with us, it'll be a lot easier. So then I can go visit Vision Blight, and see Jan, so I want to see, you know, I
Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, March 15th, and this is Sonoma's Design Review Historic Preservation Commission meeting. In person, I might add. Yay. I'd like to start off the meeting with a little bit of introduction about this is a hybrid meeting. We're going to do it in person for people who are in person, and if you'd like to attend by Zoom, you can attend by Zoom. There's links in the agenda packet to directly connect by Zoom. If you're looking for a Zoom ID number, this meeting is 980-299-59654. Make it a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Jerome?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Present.
And Chair Cormany?
Present. Starting, are there, just a little bit of review. We're not taking, I don't think it's going to be an issue tonight, but this meeting will not go past 10 o'clock. But so I think we're okay. Starting with that, are there public comments that need to be presented? Wendy?
Turn it over to Matt. We didn't have any. You can.
There was no late correspondence, so we didn't have to post any to the document center.
So no late correspondence or comments from public at this point prior to the meeting. Can we review and accept the agenda? Would somebody like to make a motion to review and accept the agenda?
I'd like to move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I second.
Thank you. Moving
Want to
forward.
do a roll call vote?
Get a roll call really quick.
Sure.
Commissioner Jerome?
Speak a little loud.
Commissioner Jerome? Commissioner Johnson?
Gotta use mic.
Chair Cormany?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Do we have any items on the consent calendar? Bit of a trick question.
Yes.
Okay, would you like to review those?
These items can be made. These items can be acted on in one motion unless a member of the public or the commission would like to remove it from the consent calendar.
Okay. Do we need to review those individually, or?
No, unless someone wants to remove.
Yeah. And just in summary, there are minutes of the meetings previously, which I think we've all reviewed and personally accept. And then some comments on some banners on the plaza. So,
I'd like to move that we approve the consent calendar as submitted.
I second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Jerome,
Yeah, I,
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Cormany.
aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we'll jump right into the public hearing. The first item is agenda item 7.1. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Cormany and members of the commission. This is discussion and possible action on an application for design review of an elevator on the exterior of an existing office building at 561 First Street West. The subject property is a 1.4 acre parcel on the west side of First Street West at its intersection at McDonald Street. The property is currently developed with an office building and a wine tasting room. The property is zoned commercial. It's in the downtown district, and it is also designated commercial by the general plan, and this does allow for commercial offices. Back in 2018, this commission considered a design review application for a new elevator at the location. The application was continued to a future meeting to allow for revisions based on comments made at the meeting. Basically, the commissioners didn't consider that the proposed glass elevator was compatible with the existing structure and requested that the applicant redesign the elevator. It had previously been approved to be painted yellow to match the paint color of the building. At this time, the applicant is proposing to install a Genesis vertical lift to the west-facing elevation of the property. The elevator lift would take the form of a glass window enclosed with an anodized aluminum frame. Staff determined that the design of the elevator is not harmonious in appearance and does not build on the city's character. So staff recommends that the applicant redesign the elevator and return to this commission at a future date. And that concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the staff? I do have one question. So it seems like the conclusion staff made is virtually identical to what we made in 2018. Is it similar?
That's why staff made that conclusion. That was the input that we received at that time. Are there any questions of staff? If not, we could go out to the public.
So can I provide a little more clarity on how this came back full circle, because it's a bit unusual?
Oh, sure. So to make a really long story short, no pun intended, in 2018, a building permit was submitted that was inconsistent with what this commission approved. So we started working with the applicant to have the elevator redesigned, and that conversation stalled. And later I found out it was due, unfortunately, to the applicant passing away. And so since then, his daughter, there's still an active building permit. It was on pause during COVID, and his daughter now is trying to get the building permit finalized and is back before this commission to attempt to get approval for the elevator that has already been installed.
So in clarity of that situation, are we trying to, she asking us to, I mean, I recognize it exists, and there was some discussion at that time about panels or colors to make it a little more harmonious. That has not been done. Is you trying to get an exception from that request, or?
Right. It's my understanding she wants the elevator approved as it is installed. And I understand that she's got some architects here, and she's going to try to have a conversation with you tonight to figure out a way to move this forward.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Obviously, is the applicant present? I've been told. Would you like to come to the podium and tell us a little bit about your situation?
Hi, I'm Rachel McFarland. Hi, Wendy. Thank you. I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for the continuation. Obviously COVID, but then also my father's passing away in the middle of it was extremely difficult. I've stepped in to help with the management of the building, which my mother now owns, and was not quite aware of where we were with the elevator situation, so was surprised when we got a final notice that our building permit was going to be yanked because the elevator's been there. I thought this was all finals. Where we are at the moment is we do have an installed elevator. What my father was trying to do was create an ADA accessible building. We have no ability to put an elevator on an interior of this building, but really wanted to make it accessible for the community, and also keep within the complex. If you've been to our complex, we have 5 buildings. It's very open. Not only do our tenants and renters use it, but also the community walks through our complex with their dogs. So we didn't want to build a new structure that was going to be large or obtrusive or, really impact anybody. The original designs, it is correct, we had hoped to be able to paint the elevator to match the building, the yellow, because it is a striking color. Unfortunately, once it was erected, we found out from the elevator providers and from our painter that you can't actually paint, it'll keep chipping. We'll basically have to repaint the elevator every 6 months to keep that yellow on the metal. What we have right now is a see-through glass elevator. You can't see it from any public access point. You can only see it when you're on our property. And for the current tenants, they look through it. So you see the building. It is true. It's a glass and aluminum frame, but it's really see-through. It's also, if you think of it from the perspective of someone in a wheelchair, it allows us to be able to see if that elevator gets stuck, you can see someone's in it as well as have the call box. So what we're proposing is to actually plant, we have existing landscaping, we already have a drip system. So to plant some shrubs that will grow to about 10 feet tall that will at least shade the bottom of the structure, which is where there's a concrete footprint, which again, you can't see from anywhere, but it'll help it blend in a little bit more. And then have that so it's shaded but still allows for anyone who's in the elevator to be able to see out and not feel enclosed and keep the sight lines open. And this is my first time in front of a committee, so I'm sorry.
No.
I'm a little nervous.
Well, thank you for the description. It's very helpful.
Thanks.
Are there any comments to the applicant from the commission?
I'm just curious to why, we saw this project, I think, on a couple different dates. And when we finally got to a point where we approved it and it was accepted by your father, why you changed from what was accepted to where we are now?
I wish that I had a better answer other than I can tell you I spend a lot of my days looking in my father's files for that elusive document that explains something to me. I'm not positive why what you saw originally was changed, other than I do know that we cannot actually physically paint the elevator, which I think was one of the things. It was designed when you first saw it to be painted yellow to match the building. And it actually, the material just can't be painted. It won't take the paint.
I think that was, from what I remember, that was a suggestion that I think your father researched and felt could have worked and did work. And so that's why we went ahead and agreed to move forward with that style of plan. So I'm just, yeah, it just, I've seen a number of times on this commission where we've approved things and then later on an applicant kind of variates that, and you have to understand how frustrating that can be from our seats.
No, I'm sure, absolutely. I wish I had a better answer.
Well, I'm curious to hear, I think you have an architect here.
I do.
Who has some suggestions, so I'm curious to hear from.
Good evening. I'm the architect. I'm going to, with your permission, I'm going to present a brief PowerPoint presentation.
Please.
Once it comes up. Excellent. Hi, good evening. I'm Michael Ross. We prepared the construction documents for this project, and I can provide a little bit of background to it to answer your questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Wendy. What you see on the screen is the site that we know well. It's basically a small campus of nicely scaled buildings, mixed-use campus of offices and apartment buildings. And the location of the lift is approximately 140 feet back from the street. It's partially nestled behind the building. You can see it right there, just kind of peeking out from behind. And it was constructed substantially, this is a little faded out, but substantially like the building permit and design review approved, the manufacturer and everything accepting, the custom yellow paint, and the opaque glass was not included. And why was that? I believe it was because it was an off-the-shelf stock model that wasn't customized, and Jeff, bless him, was dealing with a terminal illness at the time, and it got constructed and installed. And so that's where we are today. But you as a commission actually have a challenge that comes to you quite often. And what is that? Well, the challenge is, what do you do when the building code requires us to place machines next to buildings? And there's a lot of examples of it. And double check valves, you see them all around town. I wish that there was a great solution for them. It's a fire code requirement. It's a machine, basically, that ends up right in public view. Generators. Emergency generators are going to become ubiquitous. They're everywhere now. Everybody's putting it in big ones. It's another machine type. Wheelchair lifts. Two-story wheelchair lifts. They're stock engineered systems quite often made out of aluminum anodized that you can't paint. So it's very, very difficult and costly to go back on this one that we're proposing that's installed right now. So the answer really to machines next to buildings, particularly ones that are sort of implying age in history, and the machines are typically not harmonious with the Sonoma character, is what do? Well, you screen them. Here's a great example of a double check valve behind a sign enclosure right on Broadway, which I thought was very creative. And all of a sudden we've screened that, Adrian Martinez did this, screened that double check valve with a sign. I thought that was a great example. And then, of course, a big old generator behind MacArthur Place that was approved by this commission. And then the most recent wheelchair lift, which is exactly the same manufacturer as the one we're discussing tonight that you approved, basically stock finish behind the Cooperage building. And you approved it because it's not able to be viewed from the street, and it has clear glass windows. So what are we proposing to do now for this project? Here's the existing condition. Here's what we're proposing to do is to plant around the base of it to around 10 feet high, and with Laurus nobilis, which is an evergreen shrub, which is basically like a bay tree, but it grows to columnar shape as well. And what we're proposing to do is to retain the existing as-built condition of this two-story lift. Here it is from the back. Here it is screened. And basically let landscape do the work. And I think it'll do a better job than painting it with paint that will peel off, or to Rachel's point, putting an opaque film on the windows. I mean, film is available, but putting a film on the windows that will actually increase its solidity, visual solidity. And so we're asking you respectfully to allow the existing installation to remain, and for the applicant to be able to plant it out quite thickly, actually, with Laurus nobilis around the base of it. That'll do a number of things. One, it will still allow people to view it and know that it's there. Two, that it will provide filters views into the lift. And three, it will completely hide a very large chunk of foundation concrete that it's seated on. So that's our request, and thank you for considering this. We know that this has been one of those thorny issues that's been before you in the past, and we ask your understanding and approval of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Are there any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
Before you leave, so any reason the manufacturer couldn't give you a panel that matches the exterior of the building rather than glass panels in those frames?
Well, I suppose that you could go back to the manufacturer and ask them to put in metal panels, something like that. I think glass would be actually much more pleasing, and it would reduce the visual impact of it because you can see through it as compared to having it stop on a panel. I guess another way you could do it would be to wrap it in wood or something like that. But at a certain point, I think you're going to end up with this, neither fish nor fowl sort of thing that's going on. And I really believe that if we just judiciously plant this installation, it'll be much better for everything.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Wendy, are there any public comments on this issue?
It does not appear that any more members of the public are wanting to talk on Zoom or in person.
I'm going to close the meeting to the public and go to the commission for opinions. Commissioner Jerome, you want to give us your opinion?
The challenge I have with this approach is that not being part of the original review a few years ago, I don't see how the applicant has even tried to come close to the recommendation of the commission with this design. First, I appreciate the effort, and I really appreciate the intention to provide access to the building for physically challenged people. And the challenge I have in my mind is accepting that value against the characteristic of the building, which is considered historical. And I have to say that many historical buildings been modified with a glass structure, with the same concept that the visual impact would be minimized. But I think the strong frame of this elevator takes over that transparency of the structure. And for that reason, I really don't know how we can move forward with accepting what it is now.
May I make a small clarifying point? The building is actually
Hold
not
on, hold on,
historic
hold on.
that you're discussing.
Please hold your comments for a minute.
Oh, sorry.
If you would like to make a comment, I need to open the meeting back up to the public.
Sorry.
It's fine. You can, just a formality. We open the meeting back up to the public. Please come to the podium and state your name.
Sorry, I just I want to make a clarifying point. That building is not historic. It was built in 1997. So I don't think it it is under the historic protection, just to clarify on that point. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to close the meeting public again and go back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph?
Thank you. I was here when this topic first came up, and it was a challenge at that time. And the elevator has been in place now for a while. And I have to say that the landscape solution is appealing, personally, to me, with all due respect to my colleagues. And so that's my comment at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Chair Cormany. Yeah, I was on the commission as well when this project was brought up, and I remember it. And I remember that we did come to the compromise that we settled on. I don't agree with the direction that you're coming back with because of that. But I am open to working with your designer, your architect, with some maybe other ideas. I'm not a big fan of just putting some shrubs in front of it just to cover it up to make it, easier. We worked pretty hard to come to the decision we made the first time, and I think we owe it to ourselves to work a little bit harder than to kind of meet somewhere again. And this isn't it for me right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I too was part of the original commission when this went down, and I have mixed feelings. Part of it, I'm empathetic to the situation considering the death of the person who originally applied for the application. Obviously, we can't ask questions of them. And another part of me is trying to adhere to, if the commission sets out a directive and people circumvent it, and we're creating a pattern. So it's a tough one. Overall, I think the impact of this personally is very minimal. I'm probably amenable to the shrub approach, but there is some potential exposure there in creating a pattern for others to follow. So that's a little wiggly, but that's how I feel about it. Any other comments from the commission?
Well, through the chair, can I make
Absolutely.
some comments?
Go ahead.
So there are a couple of options that the commission has tonight. First, if it was willing to accept the applicant's modification with the landscaping, then the item could be continued and the applicant could come back after submitting a landscape plan, and then we could bring the findings that you need to make to the meeting. Or you could give the application or the applicant direction to make further modifications and they would come back. Or you could deny the application. And there are probably other options you could think of. Just trying to help the conversation move forward.
Thank you for the additional ideas. Anybody like to propose a motion or a way to proceed forward?
The simplest thing to do would be to move that we continue this application and request some other options to choose from. You could certainly propose the landscaping again, but I'd like to see a little bit more in terms of options and ideas than just that. That's just my thought before we move forward on. If everybody up here is amenable to continue this agenda item, I would be more than happy to move that.
Well, and then there's the other unspoken ability is just to approve it and move on as well as an option too, right?
Right. If you you could approve it, but we'd need to come back with a landscape plan and the findings.
Okay. Does somebody want to try and put together a motion? I mean, there's staff recommendations if you're. Michaela?
Well, I was just going to ask, so if we approve, then what happens next?
Well, all commercial landscaping requires that a landscape plan be approved, and we need water efficient
Right.
calculations, and we don't have those.
Right.
So we would need to continue it and have them come back with that, and maybe a revised application or a revised narrative where they're addressing the findings to help you make the findings.
And and that coming back would come back here or would go?
Yes, come back to
back
this
here.
commission at a future date.
Okay.
And you could continue it to the April meeting.
Thank you.
So we have a motion where we can basically push this to see a commercial landscape plan, or we could, could it be a double motion where somebody could say, hey, you can present us your option with the landscape plan and a commercial with all the appropriate, or we can revisit what was done or suggested previous, compare how either one of those might work. Is that an option?
Right, or you could ask the applicant to come back with a variety of options. So the one that was approved by this commission with the yellow paint, they could maybe have another idea that they could come up with, or they could come back with just with the landscaping.
So then I think I'm going to propose a motion, and the motion would be that could the applicant please submit some information about what was originally approved and a couple of alternative solutions, including a formal landscape plan for an additional meeting.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jerome?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph?
Aye.
Chair Cormany?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to our next item is 7.2.
These guys know what to do? Do they know what to do?
Yeah, and just, Rachel, I'll be in touch with you.
Thanks.
Okay,
I
thank you.
appreciate it. And again, thank you all for letting us continue it. I know it's not what you want to hear 3 or 4 years down the road, so I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7.2. Can we get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Cormany and Design Review Commissioners, and welcome Commissioner Randolph.
I know, I was over on Zoom.
I apologize, I didn't make that clear enough.
So happy seeing everybody.
Yes, this is the discussion and possible act.
The only one that didn't get that.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. So before you, tonight is a discussion and possible action on an application for design review to allow for a new roof, new paint colors for the exterior of an existing office building at 801 Broadway. The project is located on a 6,531 square foot parcel on the west side of Broadway at its intersection with Chase Street. The property's zoned mixed use, and it's located in the Broadway corridor. It's also in the historic overlay zone. Paint colors are proposed in the form of the trim and decorative woodwork is proposed to be painted white dove or dune white. The doors are proposed to be painted Dakota shadow, and the siding is proposed to be painted natural cream or Pashima. The roof colors are proposed in the form of a GAF timberline roof, a charcoal color, and it's an asphalt composition shingle material. And in order for this commission to approve an application for design review, there are certain basic findings and then findings for projects that are located in the historic overlay zone. And staff's recommending this commission approve the new roof colors and the new paint colors, subject to findings and conditions of approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant available?
Yes, he is, and I'm promoting him to a panelist. So, Robert, you should be able to share your screen now and speak. Sorry.
Let's try this. How about now? Can anyone hear me?
Yep,
We can hear you now.
we hear you.
Okay, great. I do not have anything to present other than what was already submitted, including paint chip colors to everybody. I think it's pretty straightforward. We're asking for the approval of two color schemes that are very similar to each other, the same front door color and the same roof color with both color schemes. So it's really just asking for your approval to go ahead and finish painting my building and putting a new roof on.
Seems pretty straightforward. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Public comments on this one?
There's no other members of the public wanting to speak on this.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting in the public and go to the commission for their opinion. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, it does seem very straightforward. And are we approving both options on both pieces as,
So the proposal is roofing and colors.
right, but there are a couple of colors for each of those, so we're saying, yes, we're okay with both of those. If we are saying that, I'm
Yes.
very, yeah, that's fine with me.
Commissioner Jeremy.
I agree, that's a very straightforward application. I have no objection.
Mr. Johnson.
I also agree with my fellow commissioners, pretty straightforward, and would leave to the applicant to decide on either option that they're presenting.
Yeah, I concur that it's pretty straightforward and very common color palette that we see. Would somebody like to put together a motion?
I move to accept the application as submitted, subject to the findings and conditions of approval.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jerome.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph.
Aye.
Chair Cormany.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, continuing on to 7.3. We get a staff report, please. Now we get a new player.
Musical chairs. Well, hopefully this is another very straightforward one. Oh, thanks. Thank you, yeah. All right. I did not do a whole presentation because it seemed pretty straightforward, but this is an application for design review for exterior modifications at 536 Broadway. This building was originally built in 1909 and is historic. The applicant has submitted a historic resource evaluation as well as a Secretary of the Interior standards reviewing the proposed project. So just doing an exterior remodel. It's a really cool little site. I've never been back there. And here's the existing photos. I'm going to be retaining the existing siding, and I'll let the architect probably do, he'll do a better job than I am. There are some features that are not historic, so the deck and canopy that are not historic are going to be proposed to be removed. New windows, increasing energy efficiency, new concrete walkway, the elevations. Going to be reusing the 10 panels, which I love. New storefront windows. And it's just going to be a nice freshening up. Here's the paint colors. Benjamin Moore Ivory White. The awnings in black. The tile base would be black as well, and the alley entry in antique black. And the proposed windows. And we've got some lighting. That's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Nope, thank you. Any questions to staff from the commission? Nope. Is the applicant present? I already know the answer. Yes, thank you. Please step to the podium, tell us who you are and a little bit about your project.
Bennett Martin with Strata Architects and Planners. Thank you. The necessity for the project, like Christina said, the building was built in the early 1900s, has no foundation. It's on wood, and so it is subsiding a tiny bit. And currently, there's no tenants in the lower portion of the building, so we need to actually lift the building and put a foundation in. We're going to be lifting the building, putting a foundation in, but we're putting it right back to the same elevation. So nobody would ever know, other than seeing the building on stilts for a couple of months while they put everything in. So since we're doing this, the owner thought it'd be a good time to go ahead, and she had asked us, well, what should we do with the thing? And we thought it would be a great idea to put it back to its original state. So what we're trying to do is bring it back to its original state by removing the deck that was put on in the 60s, and then the canopy over the top of that deck so we can expose the front of the building again. Can you show the front elevation? So, so right there above the windows is the deck, and then the roof that's over the top of that. So we're going to take that off. And back in the original building, actually, if you look at the picture, that the cover, there's much broader windows in the front of this building. So what we kind of wanted to do was bring that back. And so we do like the color. We like the color of the building. So we wanted to put the tin panels back. Things are going to get damaged when we do it, but we did find a replacement panel that matches. So that's the actual color of what it is now. We just want to put it back to what it is. And then the windows, we are adding some windows in the side elevation of the building because the second story is a live work area. And if you go up there, it's actually kind of dark. So we were trying to put some more windows and then replace all the windows so we can try to bring it back and give it some little energy efficiency. We don't have a tenant, or the owner does not have a tenant for the first floor, so we're not dealing with that at the moment. So this is strictly a cosmetic exterior, replacing the doors, replacing the windows. Really, that's kind of about it. And then the only thing we are going to add, we did look at putting the canopy back in the front as the original, but we cannot do that because of the setbacks. And so the one thing that we will not be doing is where the J.J. Dunbar is, we're not going to be putting the J.J. Dunbar back. So it will, up in that area, have a gray stripe up there at the top, which is kind of similar to what it's got today. On the bottom portion of the existing, it's kind of a reddish color at the base, but we're going to update that to the black to match the windows so it's all kind of uniform. And that would be in the front and the back. And then, of course, the sides would be the tin. So really straightforward. Try not to do anything crazy.
I agree.
And I really don't want to go to the planning commission.
Are there any public comments on this?
There are no other members of the public wanting to speak on Zoom.
At this time, I close the meeting of the public and go to the commission. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. I do have a couple of questions, and they're really not pertinent to this a little bit. If there's tin siding and you remove the siding, what's underneath it?
It's shiplap siding. It's wood.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the tin is on wood.
Can you come to the podium, please?
Sorry. It's a wood substrate.
Turn the microphone on, hang on a second.
Wood substrate on all four sides of the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to modify the building underneath to do any of this?
No. The only modification is going to be in the lifting and then the new foundation and the bolting into the foundation. But that's technically on the inside. You'll never notice it. We have to pull the floor up to do that, but we're putting the original floor back in.
Okay.
So.
And then the siding, the paneling you're doing is just to replace the portions that get damaged, is not the entire, is that
Nope.
correct?
No.
Just as needed?
Just as needed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in fairly good shape.
Okay.
So once it gets cleaned up and we paint it, then it's all new paint. You probably would never even notice it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Another question? for the
yeah, just a
applicant?
question. So it has no foundation, and you're going to lift it, and it's not gonna, when you lift it, it's not gonna just.
Fall apart. Similar, if you remember, we did the same thing to a building on First Street West on the other side, which was it's now a bungalow, a rental bungalow, that's behind, almost directly behind this building, but all the way over onto First Street, First Street East. If you know do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's kind of across from the Women's Center. Same thing we did
Yep.
there. That one didn't have foundation either, so that was lifted.
just-
And the way they do it is very interesting, but it's done very slowly and methodically. When they put the steel beams underneath it and jack it up, and then it's put on temporary
Cribbing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the bottom line is, we hope it does not.
Thank you for the clarity. Closing meeting to the public. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Jeremy?
Yes, thank you. First, I appreciate the report, the historical report. I learned a lot about Sonoma and this building, which was very educational. Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that the modification brings the building back to what it originally was in 1910, I'm sure you're not going to put that gasoline discharge station in front of it. And I'm fine with the modification, because when I'm looking at the elevation of the original building, 1910, the new window frame or the storefront that you're installing is pretty much in line with that. So generally speaking, I'm fine with what is proposed.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I agree. I always love these projects that have the HREs and to learn a little bit more about all these special buildings that we have in town. And especially when people are approaching us and they're bringing them back to, close to their original state, which I thoroughly enjoy. As far as I can see, the work that's going to be done isn't going to impact the building adversely at all, and is needed work. So I see this as pretty straightforward, and I'm okay with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph?
I agree with my commissioners, and this is why we're here. We're appreciating people that are trying to restore and preserve buildings like this, and it's gonna be better and better. So, yes, I have no problems with the application.
Thank you. Yeah, when I first looked at this application, my first response is, wow, the roof over that awning is really bad. So I'm kind of happy that's going away, and to see it wasn't historic. And overall, I think what you're doing is vast improvement. One thing I would like to point out is, in the historic evaluation, there were some examples of those corbels that are on the corner that have been painted intricately in some of the Colorado samples. It was a really nice touch. I thought it was really nice detail, because there's the fan, there's little details of flowers and stuff. Just a little, something you don't see normally that might be wanted to put out. Overall, very straightforward. We don't need to have buildings that don't have foundations. Happy to do that. This makes a lot of sense. Makes sense to me. Okay, closing the meeting. Would somebody like to pass a motion?
I propose to accept the application as submitted with a condition of approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jerome? Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph?
Aye.
Chair Cormany?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Are there any items for discussion at this point?
No, I have some issues updates.
Okay, we'd like to hear your issues updates.
Well, unfortunately, Terry Burt has resigned from this commission. So I'm sure that we're going to go out and do recruitment for a new alternate position. And that's going to take some time, but we wish Terry well. Sorry to see her go. She was a great addition to this commission. And then next month, we're going to be looking at the annual certified local government report. And also, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're going to be doing election of officers. So if anyone wants to be the new chair, you can make your case next month.
So we don't have to worry about a new vice chair now?
I don't think so. It's not on the agenda. I think we can wait until next month.
Yeah, and I'll follow up. She did call me. I reached out to Terry, and I have huge respect for her. Just a lot of things going on in her life right now. Getting married, much other things, and then work related, and just doesn't have the bandwidth. And so I appreciate that she doesn't have the bandwidth to not leave us hanging and, not be a no-show every time. So
We're gonna miss her.
she definitely will be missed. So any other issues or updates?
The only update I have was that the historic districts move forward to city council and were unanimously approved, which is wonderful.
Yay.
Really excited to have that done, and we are already working with the Historical Society and Sonoma League for Historic Preservation on how to celebrate those historic districts even further, and taking your recommendations on signage and things like that to the next level. So thank you.
Right. And I wanted to comment on that. I think that Landmark Commission also has created some guidelines around recognizing historic districts. And I know somebody who was on Landmark Commission for a while, who's not now, but she commented to me about that because she was so excited about this change. So I'm reaching out to her to ask her if she could share her information that could be added into what you all are looking at as well.
Thank you.
Because, the designation is step one, and then making it be visually apparent, and all the other things we talked about last time, I think is important for step 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, if you get any information, please.
I will
forward
send it
and
along.
we'll connect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I walk both those areas relatively frequently, and now I look at those houses completely different now.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. The Sebastiani one in particular, like, you drive into it as you're going to tee into it, like, oh wow, that's the original. So a little bit of history and the knowledge is really helpful. I like it. Any other issues or updates? Guess we're not going to be here till 10 o'clock, are we?
No.
Wow.
But every time everybody asks if anybody has issues.
Yeah, we all do.
Clearly.
Yeah. That said, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. It is 6:51.
Thank you, Charles.